The following content has been generated with artificial intelligence under minimal human supervision. The data presented may contain errors or inaccuracies. The opinions expressed in this content do not necessarily reflect the vision, position, or values of Digi-all. We recommend verifying critical information with additional sources before making decisions based on this content.
Welcome to Digi-all Tech News. Today is Monday, July 6th, 2026. I'm Kylie Brooks, and this is where technology becomes clear and engaging. China's humanoid robot race is focusing on the hardest part to make useful: five-fingered dextrous hands. SK Hynix is preparing a $28 billion Nasdaq listing to fund the next wave of AI memory capacity. Nvidia's next Kyber rack-scale AI system has reportedly slipped to 2028 because of manufacturing challenges. Micron, Samsung, and SK Hynix are facing a US class action lawsuit over surging D.R.A.M prices during the AI boom. Researchers have built a lightweight AI system that tries to identify where snoring begins inside the airway. Let's start with robotics, because the most important humanoid breakthrough may not look like a robot doing a backflip. It may look like a hand that can pick up, feel, and manipulate objects reliably. Chinese startups, including Linkerbot and Wuji Technology, are racing to build five-fingered dextrous robotic hands, with Linkerbot producing about 5,000 hands a month and planning to double that output. The company is also aiming for prosthetic hands at about $1,000 each, a very different price point from systems that can cost tens of thousands. The broader Chinese dexterous hand sector reached 50 billion yuan in 2025, up from 13 billion yuan a year earlier, helped by government support for embodied intelligence robots and manufacturing strengths from the EV supply chain, including mini motors and batteries. Here's the key tension: hardware can scale faster when components are cheap and factories are close, but useful dexterity is still a control problem. Wuji is using sensor gloves to capture pressure and touch, and teleoperation can collect training data, but movement and tactile sensing remain extremely hard. So the practical question is not whether China can make a lot of robotic hands. It is whether those hands can learn enough about messy three-dimensional spaces to move humanoids from stage demos into homes, factories, prosthetics, or elder care. Now to the money behind the AI chip build-out. SK Hynix is launching a Nasdaq listing of American depository receipts that could raise about $28 billion by selling 17.79 million new shares, with 10 ADRs representing one common share. The final price range is expected Thursday, July 9th, with trading scheduled to begin Friday, July 10th. SK Hynix is a leading supplier of high-bandwidth memory, the specialized HBM chips used in AI systems by Nvidia and Google, and its shares have risen 273% this year, even though they fell 4% on the announcement day. The proceeds are meant for chip factories in South Korea and advanced equipment, including extreme ultraviolet scanners from ASML. That matters because memory is one of the pressure points in the AI supply chain. If companies want larger models and faster data centers, they need more advanced memory, and fabs do not appear overnight. There is also a market structure story here. A US listing could make the stock easier for American institutions to own, and analysts see a possible valuation lift if that accessibility discount narrows. But the investor question is sharper than the fundraising headline. Is SK Hynix catching a durable infrastructure cycle, or raising capital near a mid-stage memory boom where high prices could eventually slow AI spending? Nvidia's story is a reminder that even the most valuable AI hardware roadmap has to pass through the physics of manufacturing. Research firm SemiAnalysis says Nvidia's Kyber NVL 144 system, designed to pack 144 of its most powerful GPUs into a single cabinet, has moved from a planned 2027 debut with Vera Rubin Ultra chips to 2028. The issue is the specialized multi-layer PCB midplane that would connect those vertical compute trays for high-density, low-latency training and inference. SemiAnalysis also flagged that the larger NVL 576 optical interconnect system, which would link 8 racks, is likely delayed or limited to low volumes. Nvidia declined to comment, and a backup approach of bolting together two current generation racks was already dropped after cloud providers and hyperscalers rejected it as awkward and costly. The bigger issue is cadence. Nvidia has been pushing an aggressive annual rhythm for new AI systems, and this suggests the bottleneck is not just chip design. It is whether contract manufacturers in Taiwan can assemble these systems at the required density. Current generation Rubin systems are still expected to begin initial shipments this fall to 8 major cloud partners, including AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud, and SemiAnalysis still projects Nvidia data center revenue above Wall Street expectations in the second half of fiscal 2027. So this is not a demand collapse story. It is a narrow opening for rivals like AMD and Google's in-house chips, especially for customers that cannot wait for the larger scale-up clusters. The memory crunch is also moving into court. A US private class action lawsuit filed on June 29th names Micron, Samsung, and SK Hynix, alleging they restricted D.R.A.M supply to push prices to historic highs during the AI boom. Those are unproven allegations in a complaint, but they land in a market where the pressure is very real. AI data centers are demanding far more RAM. Apple has already passed along some costs by raising certain device prices by as much as $200, and Micron has locked 16 companies into 5-year supply contracts. The supply-side reality is just as important. New fabrication plants can take more than 5 years to build and cost upward of $10 billion each, so genuine scarcity can last long enough to reshape contracts, pricing, and product costs. In practical terms, this case sits right at the line between a hard industrial bottleneck and claims of artificial shortage. Memory is not just another component for AI. High bandwidth memory and storage hardware directly affect how efficiently large models can be trained and run. The legal process will have to sort out conduct, but for consumers and AI companies, the immediate takeaway is that the cost of memory scarcity is no longer hidden inside the data center. It is starting to show up in contracts, device prices, and litigation. Finally, a medical AI story that is less flashy but potentially very practical. Researchers built a lightweight pipeline that turns snoring audio into time-frequency spectrograms using STFT, extracts features with pre-trained CNNs including VGG19 and AlexNet, and then classifies the likely source with an L2 regularized SVM. The goal is to identify which part of the upper airway is producing the snore: the soft palate, tongue base, epiglottis, or lateral oropharyngeal walls. On the Munich Passau snore sound corpus, the best setup, using AlexNet features with Viridis color mapping, reached an unweighted average recall of 46% on the development set and 67.1% on the test set, outperforming several baselines including MFCC plus SVM, end-to-end CNNs, AST, WAV-LM, and WAV2 VEC 2.0. That matters because snoring is a primary symptom of obstructive sleep apnea, and knowing where the obstruction starts could eventually help doctors choose more targeted therapies, from surgery to oral appliances, instead of treating every case the same way. The sober read is that benchmark performance is not the same as clinical readiness. The data came from one public corpus with class imbalance handled by upsampling, and the model still had trouble with some airway classes in confusion matrix analysis. The next real test is whether this works on independent datasets, in noisy home recordings, and across more diverse patients. If it does, audio could become a more accessible signal in sleep medicine. Today's through line is that AI keeps turning software ambitions into physical constraints. Robotic hands need tactile control, data centers need memory, Nvidia needs manufacturable racks, courts are being asked to examine scarcity, and even sleep medicine needs validation beyond a promising model. The technology is moving fast, but the bottlenecks are very real. Thank you for staying informed with DigiAll Tech News. We'll be back with more updates as they develop.